She sat alone in her office at midnight, replaying a voicemail from a man who'd been dead for 3 years. "Dr. Carter, it's me again. I need to talk." "She's back." His voice cracked like dry wood, a mixture of panic and guilt. The file said he jumped from a bridge in 2022. Autopsy confirmed it. But now he was calling her cell from a number that didn't exist, whispering about a woman who'd vanished decades ago, and a secret she swore was buried forever. Dr. Elaine Carter didn't believe in ghosts. Not the kind that rattled chains, and not the kind that left voicemails from beyond the grave. But there it was. A clipped, static-laced recording, timestamped at 11:06 p.m. the night before. Her thumb hovered over the play button as she sat in the dark, her back stiff against the leather of her desk chair. She'd been reviewing notes on a patient with dissociative identity disorder when her phone buzzed with the notification. "Dr. Carter, it's me again. I need to talk." "She's back." Silence, and then a shallow breath. "You were right about her." The message ended there. No name, no number, just a voice she hadn't heard in 3 years and had hoped she never would again. Victor Holloway. The last time Elaine had seen him, he was pacing the edge of the Hamilton Street Bridge, screaming about a woman named Lila. A name that had surfaced during regression therapy, buried beneath layers of trauma. He told her Lila had followed him for years. She was beautiful, cruel, impossible to forget. But Lila, as far as anyone could tell, never existed. Not in his records. Not in the world. He jumped before the paramedics arrived. Now, she could hear him again. Elaine's breath hitched as she played the message one more time. She closed her eyes, trying to locate something, anything, that would make it logical. Maybe an old recording that had somehow glitched. A prank. A sick joke. Something rational. Her office was a cold box at night, tucked into the 3rd floor of the old psychiatric wing at Westfield Medical. She didn't work late often anymore. Not since the Holloway case. But tonight, she couldn't sleep. And the voice on the phone made sure she wouldn't for a while. Her fingers shook as she opened Victor's file. Photocopies of therapy notes, hospital records, and his final psychological evaluation were stacked inside like dry bones. She pulled out the old cassette from their final session, a relic from her early days as a clinician. On it, Victor described Lila's voice, how it scratched at the corners of his mind like nails on glass. "She's not a hallucination," he'd insisted. "She's something else. Something older." Elaine stared at the tape. She should destroy it. Instead, she slid it into the old player beneath her desk and pressed play. The static began. Then a breath. Then the voice. But it wasn't Victor's. It was hers. "You shouldn't have made me remember." The tape clicked off. Elaine froze. She didn't recall ever saying that. And she didn't remember anyone recording her. The hallway lights outside her office flickered, then went out. And from somewhere in the dark, the smell of rosewater drifted in, sweet, delicate, and entirely out of place. Just like Lila. Elaine stood slowly, every nerve in her body awake. The hallway beyond her office door was swallowed in blackness, the kind that felt wet, heavy, like being submerged. Her fingers brushed the light switch. Nothing. Dead. Her phone still buzzed with energy in her pocket, the only modern thing in a building that felt like it had slipped backward into some older, colder time. She stepped into the corridor. The rosewater scent was stronger now, sweet, cloying, and utterly wrong in this sterile place. It tugged at something distant in her memory, something fragile and unwelcome. She turned the corner. And there she was. Standing at the end of the hallway, just past the flicker of the exit sign, was a woman. Slim. Pale. Hair like dark silk over her shoulders. Elaine didn't move. Couldn't speak. The woman's face was turned away, but the dress, she recognized the dress. Black lace, dated, Victorian almost. The same one Victor described in those final, frantic sessions. The same dress she once saw in a dream, years ago, back when her own sleep was a war zone of images and voices she never understood. The woman turned her head slightly, but not enough to see her face. Elaine blinked. Gone. The hallway was empty again. The silence screamed in her ears. She stumbled back into her office, slammed the door, and locked it. Her hands found the desk drawer, yanked it open, and pulled out a prescription bottle, clonazepam, low dose. She popped one under her tongue, breathing like a hunted animal. This was a stress reaction. It had to be. She hadn't slept. She'd been poring over too many old case files, triggering God knows what in her subconscious. Hallucinations under fatigue were not uncommon. She was not losing control. She repeated it like a mantra. Not losing control. But the tape. The voice. Her own voice, saying something she had no memory of. That was harder to explain. She opened her laptop and searched Victor Holloway's death certificate. Date of death, March 19, 2022. Suicide by drowning. Coroner, Dr. Aaron Bellamy. But something in the document felt off. A strange phrasing in the witness statement. A line that said simply, "Body recovered with no visible signs of decomposition despite timeline." Elaine stared. She hadn't remembered that. She clicked deeper, pulling up Bellamy's report, but the file had been redacted, sections blacked out, including time of recovery and location specifics. And then, an even more chilling note from a nurse in the ER log. Male subject was non-responsive. Body temp abnormally low, 73 degrees Fahrenheit. Cardiac activity detected for 3 minutes before flatline. Time of death officially recorded post-resuscitation attempt. 3 minutes. He'd been alive when they pulled him out. Victor never truly died on that bridge. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Hands trembling, she picked it up and answered. Nothing. Then static. Then breathing. And then the voice again, quiet, feminine, familiar in a way that made her skin pull tight over her bones. Elaine, do you remember what you did to me? The call cut out. Her throat closed. She dropped the phone like it burned. And for the first time in 20 years, she remembered a name she had forced herself to forget. Lila Granger. Not Victor's hallucination. A real girl. A patient. From long, long ago. The name thudded in her brain like a dropped hammer. Lila Granger. Elaine hadn't spoken that name since she was 28, still in residency, still naive enough to believe the worst thing about psychiatry was the paperwork. Lila had been her first long-term patient, assigned to her during a clinical rotation at the Briarcliff Residential Center in rural Pennsylvania. A quiet girl, barely 18, committed by her mother after a suicide attempt. But Lila didn't behave like the other patients. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She listened. Always listening. Watching. Smiling that thin, closed-lip smile that never reached her eyes. And she told stories. I remember being buried once, Lila said on her 4th session. But not like, in a coffin. I was small. Maybe 4? I could feel the dirt on my tongue. It was cold. Like winter. Elaine had assumed it was trauma metaphors, maybe dissociative symptoms. She recorded everything. She listened. She tried. But then Lila changed. 6 weeks into treatment, she became erratic. Woke screaming in the middle of the night. Scratched herself raw until her fingers bled. Said someone was inside her, someone wearing my face. Staff reported hallucinations, sleepwalking, repeating words in a language no one could identify. And then she was gone. One morning, her bed was empty. Window wide open, glass unbroken. Her gown folded on the chair like she'd vanished into thin air. Elaine never saw her again. The investigation was a joke. The center shut down 2 years later. No body. No leads. No one blamed Elaine directly. Lila wasn't even her primary assignment, but she blamed herself. Quietly. Relentlessly. She buried the case. Changed hospitals. Moved states. Started over. But now the voice was back. Elaine knew what this was starting to look like. Schizophrenic onset in midlife. Sleep deprivation. PTSD flare. All plausible. All terrifying. She didn't care. She needed to know if Lila Granger had ever resurfaced. She spent the next 3 hours digging through every digital archive she could access. No obituary. No missing persons alert beyond the original 2006 report. No legal trace. It was like the world had agreed to forget her. But then, a hit. A name in a clinical study PDF hosted on an obscure trauma therapy forum. A case citation buried in footnotes. Granger, L. Patient hashtag 142, B. C. Carter, E. 2007, unpublished dissertation. Elaine's chest seized. That dissertation was locked in her basement, in a taped-up box with the words "Do not open" scribbled across it in Sharpie. She hadn't touched it since graduation. Her advisor told her to burn it. Instead, she hid it. She ran down to the basement, flipped on the light, and pulled open the old storage crate. There it was. The binder. Inside, her handwriting, nervous, dense, frantic. Page after page about patient 142, B. And on the last page, a photo. Black and white. Faded. Lila, in her bed at Briarcliff, staring dead center into the camera. But the caption. It wasn't her name. It read, Patient, Elaine C. Age, 18. Schizoaffective disorder. Diagnosis pending. Elaine dropped the binder. The room swam. She backed away from the box, heart pounding so loud it hurt. Was it a misprint? Or was it the truth? Had she been the patient? Was Lila someone else entirely? Elaine didn't remember falling. One second she was standing over the binder, the next she was on the cold cement floor, breathing like she'd just outrun something ancient and merciless. Her hands were bleeding. She had scraped them against the box's jagged edges without noticing. She stared at the photo again. The girl in the picture was undeniably Lila, same sharp cheekbones, same vacant, needle-black stare. But the caption, "Patient, Elaine C." Not possible. She'd treated Lila. She remembered treating her. The sessions, the voice, the dress, the dirt. Unless... No, she couldn't go there. Couldn't open that door. The one she spent 2 decades keeping shut with a pharmacist's precision, medication, meditation, noise-canceling headphones, and a tightly wound narrative about who she was and who she wasn't. And yet, cracks were forming. What if Lila had never been a patient? What if Lila was never real? What if Elaine had been the girl in the bed? The one who claimed someone else lived in her body? She stumbled upstairs, numb, dazed, her mind a fractured mirror. At her desk, the voicemail blinked again. One new message. She pressed play. This time, it wasn't Victor's voice. It was her mother's. "Elaine, baby, you said you wouldn't call me anymore. You promised. They told me you weren't supposed to have a phone in there. That it would set you back." Elaine's mouth went dry. Her mother had died of a stroke 7 years ago. She checked the call log. No number. No trace. Her hands hovered over her laptop. She had to know. She typed. Briarcliff Residential Center, 2006 staff list. Scroll. There. Dr. Frances Kessler, lead clinical supervisor. She remembered her. Vaguely. With trembling fingers, she found Dr. Kessler's current contact info through a medical alumni database. Retired now. Living in New Hampshire. She called. No answer. She called again. This time, a weak, raspy voice answered. "Hello. Dr. Kessler, this is Elaine Carter. I was one of your students at Briarcliff in 2006. A pause. "Elaine," the voice said. "I was wondering if I'd ever hear from you again. You remember me?" Another pause. Heavy. "I remember what we tried to do for you," Kessler said slowly. "How hard we worked to ground your identity. You don't remember the incident, do you? The dissociation." Elaine's knees buckled. I was a student," she stammered. "I was a resident there." "No, honey," Kessler said, her voice fragile with pity. "You were admitted. Your mother brought you in after the 3rd attempt. You created the Lila persona to survive the abuse." Elaine's throat tightened. "No, that's not possible. I treated Lila. You were Lila." The line went dead. Elaine dropped the phone. Everything, the degrees on her wall, the lectures, the patients, it all slid sideways in her head like ice breaking on a lake. She had been Lila. But then who was Victor? And why had he said, "She's back"? She turned slowly toward her office mirror and saw a woman standing behind her. Black lace. No reflection. Just the scent of rosewater and a mouth curling into a smile that was not hers. Elaine didn't scream. She couldn't. Her body refused. Her breath clutched her ribs like a vice while her eyes locked on the woman in the mirror, not standing behind her, but inside it. A figure formed in smoky silhouette, visible only in the silvered glass, inches from her shoulder. Black lace dress. Long black hair. A face not quite human, too still, too symmetrical, like porcelain on the edge of cracking. Elaine spun around. Nothing. But in the mirror, she remained, watching. Then slowly, the woman raised one pale hand and touched the glass from the inside. Her mouth moved, but no sound emerged. Just the gentle parting of lips. Elaine leaned closer. Then the woman whispered, not into the air, but straight into Elaine's mind. "You didn't bury me deep enough." Elaine stumbled backward, her spine hitting the bookshelf. Medical text rained down around her, crashing open with sudden, brutal noise. She ran. Down the corridor, through the stairwell, out into the parking lot where the air hit her face like cold steel. It was 3:14 a.m. No other cars. No moon. Just silence. And Rosewater. She climbed into her car and drove fast, aimless, until she realized where her hands were taking her. The Hamilton Street Bridge. The place where Victor Holloway died. Or didn't. She parked. Got out. The air here was wrong. Too still. Like something waiting. The memory returned like a train crash. Victor, screaming her name. Victor, his arms covered in scratches he said weren't his. Victor, begging her to believe him when he said, "She's not gone. She's sleeping. Elaine stood at the edge of the railing, peering down into the ink-black water. Her breath fogged the air. And then she heard it. Footsteps behind her. Slow. Wet. She turned, expecting, praying it was someone. A person. Something explainable. But it was her. Or rather, another her. Same face. Same eyes. But lifeless. Expressionless. As if worn like a mask. The woman in black stood beside this second Elaine. They looked connected. Two halves of something shattered and reassembled. I told you, the mirror woman said. You should never have tried to become her. Elaine backed away. No, I got better. I was medicated. I worked to forget it. You didn't get better. You suppressed me, the voice hissed. And now you're unraveling. Every lie, every patient, every file, it was all a stage to keep me asleep. Elaine's knees buckled. I was real. Yes, the woman said. But you're not anymore. With that, the water behind her began to churn. And from its black surface, another face emerged. Victor's. Pale. Bloated. Eyes wide open. You left me down there, he gurgled. You let her in. Elaine screamed. But no sound came out. Just the scent of rosewater. And the feeling that something old had just woken up. Elaine ran. Through the woods that bordered the river, branches tearing at her skin like claws. Her shoes sank into the wet soil. Behind her, the voices chased her, Victor's wet whisper, Lila's hollow laugh, and something else now. Something beneath them both. A hunger without words. Her mind fractured in real time. She remembered being Elaine. She remembered being Lila. Both memories were real. Both couldn't be. Unless she was never just one person. Unless Victor had been right. She collapsed near a clearing, her body trembling from exhaustion. Moonlight spilled through the trees. Her breath fogged the air. Somewhere, and all called, and different. She pulled out her phone. No signal. Her fingers hovered over her notes app, a desperate impulse rising to document something, to prove her reality before it slipped completely. But she paused. There was already a note open. One she didn't write. Just a single line. If you're reading this, she's in control again. Don't trust your memories. Her hands went cold. She scrolled. More notes. More lines. Some typed. Some voice to text. All in her voice, but not her language. The mirror is not a metaphor. She only comes when you remember her name. Victor was the sacrifice. I was the door. Elaine choked on her breath. She looked around. The trees pulsed, like lungs. And then, a sound soft, rhythmic. A child's song, humming in the dark. She turned and saw a girl standing barefoot in the grass. 8, maybe 9. Long black hair. Dirty hospital gown. The same eyes. Elaine's eyes. The girl smiled. You don't remember the fire, do you? Elaine staggered back. What fire? The one you started, the girl said. And then, the memory came back, roaring like a furnace. Briarcliff. Not an escape. A blaze. She remembered the lighter. She remembered locking the door. She remembered Lila screaming inside. The body had never been found. Because it wasn't a body. It was her. Elaine dropped to her knees. No, she whispered. I didn't kill anyone. I survived. You became her, the girl said. To survive. You walked out of the fire and they gave you a new name. A new past. But I stayed. Burned. Buried. Forgotten. The girl reached out. And when her fingers touched Elaine's, her skin split. Not the girl's. Elaine's. It peeled away like paper soaked in water. And underneath was lace. Black lace. The smell of rosewater filled her lungs. Her body convulsed. Somewhere far off, she heard a voice, her own, begging, don't let her in. Please. I want to stay. But it was too late. The mirror had cracked. And the face looking back at her now was not hers anymore. The hospital walls were white again. Too white. Elaine sat quietly in a chair, hands folded, gown clean, hair neatly brushed. Everything about her appearance said calm. Safe. Healed. But her eyes were wrong. Too still. Too focused. Across from her sat a new doctor. Young. Eager. Clipboard in hand. Pen tapping against the paper. He was the 5th one this year. Can you tell me your name? He asked gently. She smiled. That same thin, closed-lip smile that never touched the eyes. Elena Granger. The doctor paused. Your records say your name is Elaine Carter. She tilted her head. I used to be. But that wasn't real. None of it was real. He scribbled something. Can you tell me what is real? She leaned in, eyes shining like obsidian. She's real. The doctor furrowed his brow. Who is? She grinned wider. Lila. But she's quiet now. I took her place. I'm the stronger one. He blinked. There it was again. The inversion. Multiple identity presentations. But it wasn't textbook did. It was deeper. Less like switching, more like possession. He'd seen her old case files. Watched the tapes. In some, she was lucid. Educated. A skilled clinician. Others, she was childlike, volatile, foreign even. And once, in the oldest tape, he'd seen something he couldn't forget. Elaine staring straight into the lens, whispering, she can't survive without a host. She needs my face. My voice. That's how she gets out. Now she was looking at him. Would you like to hear what she sounds like? She asked. He hesitated. Sure. Elaine closed her eyes. Then her body went still, like glass before it shatters. And when she spoke again, it wasn't her voice. It was Victor's. She made me jump. I didn't want to. She said she needed space to grow. Then a pause. The doctor dropped his pen. Elaine opened her eyes. Back to her voice now. Soft. Sweet. She always comes back, she said. Every time someone remembers. The doctor stood. Shaken. He turned to leave. But she called out, just before he opened the door. You smell like rosewater. He froze. Your wife wears it, doesn't she? She added, smiling. Would be a shame if she started waking up with scratches she didn't put there. His knuckles whitened on the doorknob. Behind him, Elaine began humming. A child's song. The same one Lila used to sing. 2 months later. The hospital room is empty. No Elaine. No discharge papers. No official record of her even being admitted. Security footage erased. Dr. Hastings found dead in his home. Drowned. In his bathtub. No signs of forced entry. No signs of a struggle. But the mirror in his bathroom was shattered. And written in the condensation. The last patient always becomes the next.